Romance in anime, when done right, gives us that warm, fuzzy feeling that reminds us of how great human connection can be. Romantic subplots in traditional action animes such as the entirety of the shonen genre provides us with something else to root for aside from the characters battling on screen. These romantic subplots work in a similar way to training arcs in shonen or sports anime. They rely on a structure of setup and payoff. Much like how a shonen protagonist would train to acquire more power as a setup for the inevitable payoff of a new transformation or a new ability in its upcoming battle, romantic subplots have a setup phase in which the two love interests would meet, get to know each other, get a chance to fall in love, then pay off that setup with a grand confession or a big kiss moment. This setup/payoff structure allows us to get invested in the romantic pairing because we are invested in the characters themselves. We want them to fall in love for the same reason we want them to beat the bad guy. It's because we care about these characters. A romantic subplot adds an extra goal, an extra avenue of happiness to the lives of these main characters. Because we know that the sweet, pure human connection that romance can offer them would enhance their lives. We are rooting for their crushes to pay off because of how good the build-up, the setup for that romance has been, and it is satisfying when it finally happens. Since it's Valentine's Day, I thought it'd be fun to talk about what makes a successful romantic subplot in anime. Then dive into what I consider to be the best demonstration of writing romance in anime I've seen in recent memory. But before we get into that, I'd just like to take a few seconds to let you all know that if you liked the video and want to support me even further, you can follow me on Patreon. Members over there get access to bonus content and exclusive perks. The link is in the description to this video. And now back to the video. In order to truly discuss what makes a romantic subplot work, we have to consider what makes a bad romantic subplot. Romance done poorly can stem from various factors, including but not limited to when a character is reduced to being a love interest solely for the sake of being a love interest. This happens when it feels like this character exists for the sole purpose of giving the main character a boyfriend or girlfriend. This happens primarily with female characters being created to just serve as the inevitable end-goal romantic partner for the male protagonist. It can be irritating and often degrading when most of the character's screen time and dialogue is dedicated to how much their crush has impacted their life or how badly they want to be by their side. This type of characterization does a disservice to these characters, who again are often female, by overshadowing their other interesting aspects with lovey-dovey heart eyes for their crush. The romantic subplot doesn't feel like it is a mutual love between two characters, but rather one character whose whole existence revolves around the other. The best romantic stories build upon the interactions between two well-rounded characters. It allows us to see through the eyes of both lovebirds and understand where the romantic affection may come from outside basic physical attraction. Good fictional relationships occur between two characters that stand on their own as characters, but who just happen to fall in love with one another. Being able to see the characters actually fall in love and learn why they're falling in love gives us a deeper connection to the relationship. Luckily for us, this season of anime has given us a ship that does precisely that. So without further ado, I want to talk about the best written romantic subplot from this season, Fern and Stark from Frieren Beyond Journey's End. One of the best parts of this relationship was the length at which it takes both our young heroes to develop feelings for each other. It was certainly not a love at first sight situation, but rather a worthwhile slow burn that gives us all of the delightful character building that is required to make this ship believable. Stark and Fern's character development are incredible. They both feel like they are protagonists of their own stories. One character doesn't overshadow the other, and their love story isn't the forefront of their characterization. Fern's crush on Stark isn't her primary character trait. We actually learn all about Fern multiple episodes before Stark was even introduced. We know what Fern is like outside of her growing romance with the red-headed himbo. On the other end, that same himbo has a character profile of his own that is distinct and not defined by his romantic affiliation with Fern. Both of them are characters first and love interests second. The romantic storyline feels natural, especially in a story about growing as people and learning about the human experience. The love that Fern and Stark are just starting to feel for each other enhances their characterization instead of replacing it. Fern's character traits include her aloofness, her cool demeanor, her genius intellect, as well as a romantic interest in a man who's caring, kind, and also wants to repay his mentor. Stark's character traits include his inferiority complex, cowardice, compassion, hardworking nature, in addition to taking a liking to somebody who encouraged and motivated him to be brave. I can genuinely believe why Fern would fall in love with this cowardly, oblivious, but always well-meaning meathead. And I can believe why Stark would fall for this hard-headed, brash, yet caring and genius mage. Another aspect of their inevitable relationship that works so well is how genuinely awkward and clunky it is. Romance depicted in other shonen anime are usually very straightforward. When one character develops feelings for the other, the story then locks in and waits for them to inevitably get together at the end of the story. They don't do the legwork to show the ebbs and flows that exist between the natural infatuation stage and the love stage. We all know that love isn't as simple as girl falling for guy or vice versa than happily ever after, especially when it comes to teenage characters who have their own set of emotional nuances to consider. Fern and Stark's relationship perfectly captures the awkward and perhaps even nostalgic emotions associated with your first love. The anime reminds you through their actions that these two characters are still just teenagers. Teenagers who don't exactly have the best example of love in their lives. Keep in mind that Fern was an orphan who was raised in the woods by a corrupt priest and essentially kidnapped by the most socially oblivious creature in human history. Meanwhile, Stark, who was also orphaned, was raised by anime Gimli and got beat up by him most of his life and never really got a chance to meet girls. Neither of them really know what love is, and they're both still trying to understand this emotion they're feeling towards each other and learn what the other means to them. The story of Beyond Journey's End is about learning the intricacies of the human condition. Love is one of those things that Frieren is trying to learn. Therefore, through Fern and Stark, she is able to further her understanding of her own feelings towards Himmel. Hence why the ring that Himmel got for Frieren matched the bracelet that Stark got for Fern. As I mentioned before, many romantic subplots have this setup/payoff structure where the romantic interactions create tension and buildup. And then there's ultimately a grand romantic moment at the end of the story to create a satisfying payoff. With Fern and Stark, due to how incremental and slow their romantic growth is, we are given multiple setups and payoffs throughout the story. Stark forgetting Fern's birthday was setting up their romantic date where Stark buys her the love bracelet. Fern and Frieren selling away Stark's freedom for books and snacks was setting up the grand romantic dance scene where Fern learns how much she admires Stark. Fern being mad at Stark for grabbing her too roughly was setting up the moment where Fern realizes that she doesn't mind being touched by him, emphasizing just how intimate their relationship has grown. Each time that they learn something new about each other, communicate with each other, hurt and then apologize to each other, and grow with each other, they are setting up and paying off small yet satisfying romantic moments. It feels like we've already gotten the grand romantic reveal delivered to us through small romantic doses. By this point in the story, Fern and Stark already feel like the type A girlfriend and her happy-go-lucky himbo boyfriend. We know they care for and love each other, and everyone in the story knows it as well, except for them. Fern and Stark's relationship has so much depth to it. Their romance had time to breathe and develop over the course of several episodes and multiple months within the story, just like real relationships. The relationship also does not become the sole motivation for either characters. Both Fern and Stark are their own well-rounded characters with existing motivations, who happen to meet, spend quality time growing close, and eventually fall in love with each other. Fern and Stark complement each other, but they do not define each other. This ship is taking its sweet time to sail, but much like Sign, we are all on board. Thank you all so much for watching the video all the way through the end. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on the video and what your favorite romantic ship in anime is. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time with more lukewarm takes.